Hey guys, today it's about what is Firefish, and I will quickly explain from a very high level point of view what's the idea behind the Firefish and for whom is Firefish interesting, what are the key users in the short term which could use like Firefish to create a lot of value for their life. So Firefish is a Bitcoin backed peer-to-peer credit platform. And now directly a lot of people are getting nervous because Bitcoin and credit are mixed together, and that could be or should be a sign that you should pay attention. So I understand that people are getting nervous about it, but let me please explain why Firefish is not that risky or that insane how it sounds like in the beginning. So Bitcoin has multi-signature or smart contract capabilities. So you can do like for example a multi-signature escrow in Firefish where you can send Bitcoin to a 3 out of 3 multisig, and that exactly is doing Firefish. They created like the 3 out of 3 multisig, and the idea is that the Bitcoin can go out of this multisig only in two ways. They can only go to the investor and to the borrower. So they can only it's only a two-way street. So you can put money in and there's only a two-way street out. And the advantage of that is that a platform which is Firefish can't have direct access to the Bitcoin. So they can't steal your Bitcoin directly. And that is always the problem if you have like Bitcoin backed credit platforms where there is some kind of technical custody of the platform, because then there's always the risk that they steal your Bitcoin, and that's a fear which a lot of Bitcoiner have. And right, so I mean, that makes sense. So, but it's still not like completely trust free like Bitcoin, because you have to trust Firefish that they like do the right decision and like using this platform in the right way how it is intended. So the idea is that there are people which have Bitcoin and they want to use their Bitcoin to secure a credit. So I mean, you can compare it with the real estate market. A lot of real estate investors, they use their real estate as a security to get more credits to buy another house, for example. And in this case, it's not the real estate which is the security or the collateral, it's the Bitcoin which functions as a collateral. And the platform enabling these like peer-to-peer credit transactions. And there are people which want to invest. They are maybe interested in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is too volatile for them, and they just want to lend their money out to invest and return a certain amount of interest. And on the Firefish platform, the interest is not determined by the platform, it's a free market, so it's just supply and demand. And at the moment, the interest rates are quite high, they are around 10%. So it's really interesting just for investors which want to invest their money and get 10% in return. And the interesting thing is that the platform is structured that the credit value, so the principal which the borrower has to pay back at the end of the duration, and the interest rate is always backed by Bitcoin. And when the price or the value of the Bitcoin falls too low, Firefish automatically liquidates the Bitcoin they are selling them, and the investor gets either Bitcoin or they get the fiat amount back that they can decide when they like using the platform. And for so that's from the investor side, it's really interesting because they have no default risk because the loan is always over collateralized with Bitcoin. They just have like a certain platform risk. And for the um, for the borrower, it's really interesting because they can use their Bitcoin to access credit. And there are like two reasons why you want to use your Bitcoin to access, to get fiat money, to access a fiat credit. And that is either you want to use this credit to buy more Bitcoin, it's like kind of a leverage, or you are using it because you have like a big bill, like your car broke down and now you need money, and you maybe you have to sell Bitcoin but you don't want to sell Bitcoin, so you use your Bitcoin as a security, get the credit, and then yeah, use the credit money to pay the bill from the car repair shop. And that are like the main two scenarios how borrower are using it. And the big idea here is that a lot of Bitcoiners, they believe Bitcoin will be like growing in value and return a lot of or have will have really high returns in the future per annum, and the returns will be higher than the interest which they have to pay on the Firefish market. So over the last 8 years, Bitcoin returned per year approximately 50%, and that's a pretty amazing return per year. 50%, that's like much higher than the stock market, and also much higher what you get when you invest in government bonds. And so, as long as the interest rate which they have to pay on Firefish is lower than these 50%, or more precisely, that's only, of course, the past return, and the past return are not like determining for the future, but still, Bitcoiner have high expectations in general about the return of Bitcoin in the future. So some say Bitcoin will return per annum over the next 8 years like 30%. Some will say 20%, some will say 40%. So there are different opinions about the return of Bitcoin in the future. And for the individuals, if the expected return per annum in the future is higher than the interest rate which they have to pay to use Firefish, then they're going to use Firefish because they benefit from it. So the biggest challenge, of course, is that Bitcoin is highly volatile, and the loan durations of Firefish are at the moment more short term. So the shortest is 3 months, and the longest is 2 years. And so Bitcoin is not doing like the high returns every year in a very linear way. So it's really volatile, and after 2 years, it could be that that Bitcoin did not increase that much or even fall in value. So you have to pay back the interest, and your Bitcoin which you use as a collateral is less worth. But Bitcoiners are thinking long term, so they say, I'm just rolling over the credit. So when the 2 years, which I take the credit for example, is nearly over, I take a new credit on the Firefish platform and I pay back the old credit. So I'm rolling over the credit, and that you can do it theoretically forever. At the moment, of course, because of the short duration, you have to do it manually. It's not like you can select like a really long loan duration for 10 years. That would be ideal, but at the moment you have to do it manually and use a new credit to pay back the old credit to simulate like this really long loan duration. And as long as Bitcoin is outperforming the interest rates which you have to pay on Firefish in the long run, also the borrower benefits. So the investor benefits because he gets a return which is quite high without volatility and without a classical default risk, because it's always over-secured, over-collateralized with Bitcoin the credit. And the borrower, they benefit definitely if they do it long term, and if long term, like the returns on Bitcoin are higher than the interest rates, yeah, which they have to pay on Firefish. So that's that's the video about how Firefish work. It's basically a platform which connects borrower and investors, and the borrowers are Bitcoiners which are ready to use, or which are ready to use Bitcoin as a collateral to get a credit, and the investors, they just want to get an interest rate for a short um, short loan period without volatility and without a default risk. And my warning is, especially for the borrowers, like use the platform conservatively, because you never know if the price of Bitcoin falls, and if it falls too much. To be more precise, at the beginning you have to over collateralize it by 200%, um, and if the Bitcoin price falls by 45%, then you get liquidated, and you have, you lost your Bitcoin basically. And it's 45% and not 50%, because there's a liquidation fee of 5%, which is also going to the investor, or covers the cost for the liquidation of the Bitcoin. And so use it really conservatively, only with a small percentage of your Bitcoin stack. Don't put all your Bitcoin on Firefish. Don't get crazy. It's just a tool, and yeah, you have to be careful. And yeah, that's all what I want to say. If you want to support my educational work, um, you can use my discount code neversell, and as a borrower you get 30% discount on your first credit, so you pay 1% instead of 1.5% fees, and that would be really appreciated by me. Really important, that's not financial advice, it's just, I'm just an educator, and I like to talk about Bitcoin and about Firefish and about how to live on a Bitcoin standard, as comfortable and as good as possible. So yeah, thanks for listening. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Never Sell Your Bitcoin, and I wish you a nice day.